There are some psychological reframes around failure and setback that fundamentally alter how your brain processes difficulty. And when you start seeing failure through this particular lens, something shifts in how you approach risk, how quickly you recover, and how much of your potential you are actually willing to deploy. Because here's the thing most people never examine directly. The fear of failure is not really about the failure itself. Nobody is genuinely afraid of a failed attempt the way they are afraid of a physical threat. What people are actually afraid of is the story the failure tells about them, that they were not smart enough, not capable enough, not worthy of the thing they were reaching for. And that story, not the failure itself, is what stops people from starting, from continuing, from going again after things fall apart. The entire relationship with failure that most people carry was assembled in childhood and early education, environments that punished wrong answers and rewarded only correct ones, that treated mistakes as evidence of inadequacy rather than data points in a learning process. That conditioning runs deep, it operates automatically, and it costs people enormously in risk avoided, attempts not made, and potential permanently left on the table. What I want to walk through today are the specific psychological strategies that reframe how your brain categorizes failure, not as a verdict on your worth, but as one of the most precise and irreplaceable tools for building something real. This kind of thinking is what Elevate Your Daily is built around. If you are not subscribed yet, do it right now, because this conversation is one of many that could genuinely change the direction of something important in your life. Good to have you here today. Pull in close because this one is personal for me in ways I am going to be completely honest about. No warm-up, let's go. There was a business idea I believed in completely. I spent months building it, planning it, telling people close to me about it with genuine excitement. And it failed. Not dramatically, no public humiliation, no financial catastrophe, just quietly, undeniably failed to become what I had been certain it would become. And the failure itself was manageable. What I was not prepared for was what happened inside me afterward. I stopped pitching ideas in rooms. I started qualifying every new thought with reasons it probably would not work. I became the person who waited to be certain before moving, which, as I've come to understand, is just another way of never moving at all. I realized that the failure had not broken my ability, it had broken my willingness. And willingness, once damaged by an unexamined relationship with failure, is far harder to rebuild than any practical skill. That realization is what sent me looking for a different way to understand what failure actually is and what it is actually for. Failure is feedback wearing an uncomfortable costume. The first reframe is the foundational one, and everything else builds on it. What I've come to understand is that a failed attempt is not a closed door. It is the most specific and honest information you will ever receive about what needs to change. Thomas Edison's documented response to hundreds of failed attempts at the light bulb was not resilience performance for public consumption. It was a genuine operating philosophy. Each failure told him precisely what did not work, which systematically narrowed the space where the solution lived. I've learned that the people who iterate fastest are almost always the people who have reframed failure as data most completely. They are not braver in some abstract sense. They're just less wasteful with the information that failure provides. Separate the attempt from your identity. From my point of view, this is the psychological shift that matters most and the one that is hardest to actually execute consistently. When a project fails, when a relationship ends badly, when a business attempt collapses, the human brain has a powerful tendency to collapse the distance between what happened and who you are. The project failed, therefore I am a failure. The attempt did not work, therefore I am someone who does not work. I've noticed that every person I know who has built something meaningful after significant setback had to learn, often painfully, to hold the failure at arm's length from their identity. The attempt was an action. The failure was an outcome. Neither one is a personality trait. Neither one is permanent. And the moment you can genuinely feel that distinction, rather than just intellectually understand it, recovery accelerates dramatically. Use the failure autopsy, but set a time limit on it. Here's a practical strategy I've grown to use consistently after any significant setback. Examine the failure with genuine rigor. What specifically went wrong? What decisions contributed? What I would change? What I now know that I did not know before? Write it down. Be honest in a way that would be uncomfortable to show anyone. Extract everything useful from the experience. And then, and this part is as important as the examination itself, close the file. set a deliberate endpoint on the analysis, and refuse to return to it as punishment. I've realized that most people either skip the examination entirely, which means they repeat the same mistakes, or they stay inside the examination indefinitely, which becomes self-punishment disguised as reflection. The failure autopsy has a purpose. When that purpose is served, staying longer serves nothing except the narrative that you should have known better. Study who has failed bigger and built further. What I've noticed is that exposure to specific examples of failure followed by extraordinary success is one of the most reliable antidotes to the paralysis that personal failure creates. Not just generic inspirational stories, specific ones with real texture. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination and creativity before building the most recognizable entertainment brand in human history. J.K. Rowling was a single mother on welfare, manuscript rejected by 12 publishers, before Harry Potter became a cultural phenomenon spanning decades. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school varsity basketball team. I've experienced what happens in the brain when you sit with these stories not as motivational decoration, but as genuine evidence. The evidence says the failure did not predict the outcome. The response to the failure predicted the outcome. Build a failure tolerance practice. Deliberately seek small rejections. This is the strategy that sounds most counterintuitive and produces some of the most immediate results. I've come to understand that failure tolerance, like physical fitness, is built through progressive exposure, not by avoiding the thing that challenges you, but by gradually increasing your capacity to handle it. Start small and deliberately. Pitch an idea you expect to be rejected. Apply for something you do not think you will get. Have the conversation you have been avoiding because it might not go well. Each small rejection you survive without it defining you is a deposit into the resilience account. And over time, what once felt catastrophic begins to feel like Tuesday. The fear does not disappear, but your relationship with it changes. You stop organizing your choices around avoiding it. Rewrite the story you tell about your previous failures. I've realized that the narrative you carry about your previous failures is not a neutral historical record. It is an active psychological force shaping what you believe is available to you right now. The story of a failure told as evidence of your limitations produces one kind of person. The same failure told as the turning point that taught you the most important thing you now know produces a completely different person, with a completely different relationship to risk, to ambition, and to their own capability. I've experienced the actual physical difference between telling a failure story as a wound and telling it as a lesson. The body responds differently. The confidence level in the room shifts. Rewriting the story is not delusion or toxic positivity. It is choosing the interpretation that serves your future rather than confirms your fear. In my opinion, I've realized that failure is genuinely neutral until you assign it meaning. And the meaning you assign it, verdict or data, ending or redirection, proof of limitation or evidence of effort, determines almost everything about what you build next and how quickly you build it. From where I honestly stand, I've come to understand that the most dangerous relationship with failure is not the one where you fail and feel bad. That is human and temporary. The most dangerous relationship is the one where the fear of failing becomes so woven into your decision-making that you stop attempting things that matter, and you dress that avoidance as wisdom, as patience, as waiting for the right moment. The right moment is built, not found, and it is almost always built from the wreckage of an earlier attempt that did not go the way you planned. Every failure you have ever experienced deposited into you. The only question is whether you are going to spend it or let it sit there unused. Go spend it. Start today. The attempt is waiting, and it has been waiting long enough.